I was standing there at the water cooler when I heard Vance bragging about his new beach house. Literally bragging, hands gesturing wildly, voice just loud enough for everyone to hear, while 20 of us had just been told to pack our desks. 20 people. People with families and mortgages and sick parents and student loans. I remember how the paper cup crumpled in my hand, water spilling down my wrist and onto my watch. The same watch my dad gave me when I graduated. Always be on time for what matters, he'd said. And what mattered right then was that Vice President Vance Mercer had just eliminated 20 positions, including mine, while his pet project had burned through $500,000. $500,000, with nothing to show for it. Nothing except apparently a down payment on his Malibu dream home. What made it worse? I'm the one who designed the financial tracking system that proved his project was failing. I'm the one who built the dashboard showing the money hemorrhaging month after month. I'm the one who flagged it. And I'm the one who got fired for budget constraints. I stood there, water dripping from my fingers, as his eyes met mine across the break room. He smiled, actually smiled, then had the audacity to wink before turning back to his audience of yes men. That's when I decided I wasn't just going to walk away. I was going to burn his perfect world to the ground. Sorry, I should introduce myself. I'm Talia Reeves, 32, Senior Systems Analyst. Well, former Senior Systems Analyst as of last Friday. Everyone says I'm the steady one, the friend who thinks before she speaks, who plans everything, who never causes trouble, the responsible one, the reliable one. They don't know this side of me. I didn't either, until Vance pushed me there. Honestly, I can't believe I'm actually doing this. Telling this story, I mean. But after everything that's happened, I feel like people need to hear it. If you're watching this, wherever you are, drop a comment letting me know where you're from. I'm curious how far this story reaches. And if anything like this has happened to you, hit that like button and subscribe to our channel. Trust me, you'll want to see how this ends. I never wanted to work at that company. It was one of those mid-sized tech firms that pretended to be all about innovation and disruption, but was really just a boys' club with ping pong tables and kombucha on tap. I took the job because the pay was good and my mom's medical bills weren't paying themselves. From day one, Vance had his eye on me, not in a sexual harassment way. That would have been too obvious, too actionable. This was subtler. He'd call on me in meetings to explain my analysis, then interrupt halfway through. He'd take my ideas, repackage them, and present them as his own. Classic stuff, really. Death by 1,000 paper cuts. But I needed the job, so I smiled through it, worked harder, stayed later, documented everything. Then came Phoenix. That's what Vance called his pet project, this supposedly revolutionary client management system that would change everything. The board gave him $500,000 and 12 months to deliver. He assembled his dream team, all men, all from prestigious universities, all with the right connections. I wasn't invited to a single planning meeting. 8 months in, our quarterly numbers weren't looking great. The CFO asked me to create a financial tracking system for all current projects. When I got to Phoenix, things didn't add up. Expenses were categorized weirdly. Deliverables were vague. Milestones kept shifting. I pulled an all-nighter mapping everything out. By morning, I had my answer. Phoenix was a disaster. At the current burn rate, they'd blow through the budget with nothing functional to show for it. I triple-checked my analysis, prepared my presentation, and scheduled a meeting with my direct supervisor, Lorelei. She listened carefully, looked at my charts, and sighed. This is concerning, Talia. Really concerning. I'll take it to Vance. 2 days later, she came to my desk, face pale. Vance says your analysis is flawed. He says you don't understand the complexities of Phoenix. Did you show him my dashboard? The numbers speak for themselves. She wouldn't meet my eyes. He's the VP, Talia. He has the board's confidence. That night, I made a decision. I started copying documents, screenshots, email trails. I set up an anonymous cloud account and uploaded everything. Every expense report, every missed deadline, every revised projection. I documented conversations, took notes after meetings. For 6 months, I built my case in secret, all while watching Phoenix crash and burn in slow motion. The company's stock started slipping. Whispers of budget cuts filled the hallways. That's when I discovered Vance's solution. Cut 20 positions from departments unrelated to Phoenix, claim it was part of a strategic restructuring, and use the freed-up salary budget to cover Phoenix's overruns. My position was on that list. So were 19 others. Mostly women, mostly people of color, mostly those who didn't play golf with Vance on Sundays. The announcement arrived on a Friday afternoon. At 3 o'clock, a company-wide email dropped into everyone's inbox, terse and cold. Then came the individual meetings with human resources. Mine was set for 4:15. I sat across from Heather from HR. She didn't say much, couldn't even meet my eyes. Instead, she slid the severance package across the table with both hands, like it weighed more than it should have. 2 weeks' pay for every year of service, she said quietly, and a non-disclosure agreement. We'll need you to sign before receiving any benefits. I scanned the NDA. It was comprehensive. I couldn't discuss the terms of my separation. I couldn't disparage the company or its leadership. I couldn't reveal any proprietary information about internal projects, including Phoenix. What if I don't sign? I asked. Heather finally met my gaze. Then no severance, no recommendation letters, and potentially legal action if you violate confidentiality in any way. I nodded, took the papers, and said I'd think about it over the weekend. Then I went to my desk, packed my plants and photos, while my now former colleagues awkwardly avoided eye contact. That's when I overheard Vance by the water cooler, talking about his beach house. That weekend, I didn't call my mom. I didn't tell my friends. I sat in my apartment surrounded by printouts, sticky notes, and my laptop, building the case that would destroy Vance Mercer. Monday morning, I should have been applying for jobs. Instead, I was outside board member Imani Washington's favorite coffee shop, not stalking researching. I knew from company events that she arrived every morning at 7:30 for her almond milk latte. I knew she sat at the corner table and spent 30 minutes reviewing her day before heading to her first meeting. I knew she was the only board member who had ever questioned Vance's methods. I ordered the same drink and approached her table. Ms. Washington, I'm Talia Reeves. Until Friday, I was senior systems analyst at the company. She looked up, confused but not dismissive. You were part of the layoffs. Yes. May I sit for just 2 minutes? Then I'll never bother you again. She gestured to the chair opposite her. I placed a sealed envelope on the table. Inside is a USB drive with documented evidence that Phoenix has burned through its entire budget with no viable product. There's also evidence that Vance Mercer deliberately misled the board about its progress and used the recent layoffs to cover the financial shortfall. Her expression didn't change, but her hand stopped halfway to her cup. I haven't signed the NDA, I continued. I'm not asking for my job back. I'm not asking for anything except that you look at the evidence. What you do with it afterward is your decision. She studied my face. Why are you doing this, Ms. Reeves? I thought about the 19 other people who'd lost their jobs, about Daria in accounting who was pregnant with her first child, about Marcus in customer support who was putting his brother through college. Because it's right, I said simply, and because someone like Vance Mercer shouldn't get to fail upward while the rest of us fall. I stood up to leave. She didn't touch the envelope. Ms. Reeves, she called as I reached the door. I can't promise anything. I know, but now you can't say you didn't know either. I spent the next week in a strange limbo, applying for jobs during the day, obsessively checking my email at night, no word from Imani Washington, no unusual activity on the company's social media, nothing. Then Wednesday night, my phone rang. Unknown number. Hello? Ms. Reeves. Imani Washington's voice was clipped, professional. There's a board meeting tomorrow at 10 a.m. Your presence is requested. My heart slammed against my ribs. In what capacity? As a witness. The information you provided has raised significant concerns. We'd like you to walk the board through your findings. I gripped the phone tighter. Will Vance Mercer be there? A pause. Yes. All senior leadership will be present. This was it. The moment I'd either been waiting for or the elaborate setup for my complete professional destruction. It could go either way. "I'll be there," I said. I didn't sleep that night. I rehearsed my presentation, anticipated every possible question and objection. By morning, my eyes were red-rimmed but clear. I put on my sharpest suit charcoal gray with a subtle pinstripe and my dad's watch. Always be on time for what matters. The security guard did a double take when I walked into the lobby. "Ms. Reeves? I thought you—" "I have a meeting with the board," I said, surprised by the steadiness in my voice. He checked his list, then nodded. "14th floor. They're expecting you." The elevator ride felt eternal. With each floor, I questioned myself. Was I doing this for justice or revenge? For the others who lost their jobs or for my wounded pride? Did it matter if the outcome was the same? The doors opened to reveal Imani Washington waiting for me. "They're assembled," she said without preamble. "You'll have 15 minutes to present. Then they'll ask questions. Vance has been told this is a project review." I nodded, clutching my portfolio. "Has he seen the evidence?" "Not yet." Her expression was unreadable. "That's your job." She led me into the boardroom, all glass and mahogany and quiet power. 12 people sat around the table, including Vance. He froze mid-sentence when he saw me, confusion quickly morphing into something harder. "What is this?" he asked, looking at the chairperson. Not me, as if I wasn't worth addressing directly. "Ms. Reeves has some information about Project Phoenix the board needs to hear," Imani said, gesturing for me to take the empty seat at the presentation end of the table. I connected my laptop to the display system, acutely aware of Vance's eyes boring into me. The room fell silent as my opening slide appeared. Project Phoenix, Financial Analysis and Timeline. "Thank you for this opportunity," I began, my voice finding its strength. "I've been asked to present my findings regarding Project Phoenix's budget allocation, expenditures, and deliverables over the past 12 months. I clicked to the next slide, a simple graph showing the projected budget versus actual spend, with a glaring gap between promised deliverables and reality. As you can see, Phoenix has exceeded its budget by 32% while achieving only 15% of its stated goals. Vance shifted in his seat. "This is absurd. Where are you getting these numbers?" I met his gaze directly. "From the company's own financial system, Mr. Mercer. The same system I designed at your request." For the next 12 minutes, I laid out everything. The missing funds, the falsified progress reports, the diverted resources. With each slide, the atmosphere in the room grew heavier. Then I reached the final section. In March, when it became clear that Phoenix would not meet its goals within budget, alternative funding was sought. This came in the form of department cuts. I displayed the list of eliminated positions alongside their salaries, then overlaid it with Phoenix's budget shortfall. The numbers matched almost exactly. 20 people lost their jobs not because of company-wide financial necessity, but to cover the failure of a single project. The chairperson leaned forward. "These are serious allegations, Ms. Reeves. Do you have documentation to support all of this?" I nodded and distributed folders to each board member. Everything is sourced from internal systems, emails, and meeting notes. I've included the original files and their locations on the company servers for verification. Vance's face had gone from red to white. "This is a vindictive attack from a disgruntled ex-employee. She's violating her NDA." "I never signed it," I interrupted calmly. "And every document here was obtained while I was still employed, as part of my official duties tracking project finances." The board members were flipping through the folders, expressions grim. The CFO looked physically ill. "Ms. Reeves," the chairperson said after a long silence, "would you please wait outside while we discuss this matter?" I gathered my things and walked out, legs somehow supporting me despite feeling like water. In the anteroom, I sank into a chair and finally allowed myself to tremble. 45 minutes passed before the door opened again. Imani Washington gestured for me to return. The room had transformed. Vance was no longer seated at the table, but standing against the wall, his attorney beside him. Several board members wouldn't look at me. The chairperson cleared his throat. "Ms. Reeves, the board has reviewed your evidence and finds it compelling." We're initiating a formal investigation into Project Phoenix and the recent restructuring decisions. I nodded, waiting for more. Mr. Mercer has been placed on administrative leave pending the outcome of this investigation. He hesitated. We owe you our gratitude for bringing this to our attention. Vance made a choked sound. His attorney whispered something to him. What about the people who lost their jobs? I asked, not ready to accept gratitude when 19 others were still unemployed. The chairperson and CFO exchanged glances. That will be part of our review, the CFO said carefully. If positions were eliminated improperly, we'll need to address that. Not good enough. Not nearly good enough. I have one more thing to show you, I said, pulling a final document from my portfolio. This is a list of the 19 other employees terminated last Friday. Next to each name, you'll find their performance reviews, project contributions, and cost-benefit analyses of their roles. I handed it to Amani, who passed it to the chairperson. Reinstating these employees would cost less than the remaining budget allocated to Phoenix. And unlike Phoenix, they've all proven their value to this company. The room fell silent again. I had pushed as far as I could. Now it was up to them. The chairperson finally spoke. Thank you, Ms. Reeves. You've given us much to consider. We may need to contact you as our investigation proceeds. I recognized a dismissal when I heard one. I gathered my things and walked toward the door, passing close to Vance. He didn't look at me, but I heard his whispered words clearly. You've made a very powerful enemy today. I paused, turned slightly toward him, and replied just as quietly, No, Vance. I've exposed one. Then I walked out, my dad's watch ticking steadily on my wrist. Always be on time for what matters. And destroying Vance Mercer's carefully constructed world of privilege and corruption, that mattered more than anything. But walking out of that boardroom wasn't the end. It was barely the beginning. Because what happened next would change everything. Not just for me, not just for Vance, but for every person who'd ever been stepped on by someone who thought they were untouchable. Wait until you hear what happened when I got to the elevator. The elevator doors opened, and there stood Lorelei, my former supervisor. Her eyes widened as she took in my presence in the executive floor. Talia, what are you doing here? She whispered, glancing nervously down the hall toward the boardroom. Just finished a meeting, I said, stepping into the elevator beside her. How are things in the department? Her shoulders slumped. Terrible. Everyone's scared. Productivity's crashed. Nobody knows who's next. The doors closed, sealing us in together. She turned to me, really looking at me for the first time. You did something, didn't you? I just saw Vance's assistant rushing in with his attorney. I kept my face neutral. I showed the board the truth about Phoenix and the layoffs. She grabbed my arm, her fingers digging in. Talia, do you have any idea what you've done? Vance has friends everywhere. Board members, executives at other companies, investors. He's been in this industry for 20 years. You've been in it for what? 5? He'll destroy you. I gently removed her hand. Maybe, but right now, he has bigger problems. When I got home, the adrenaline crash hit me hard. I kicked off my heels, collapsed onto my couch, and stared at the ceiling, replaying every moment of that meeting. Had I done enough? Too much? Would those 19 people get their jobs back? Would Vance somehow twist this around, make me the villain? My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. This isn't over. No name, no context needed. My stomach clenched, but I deleted it without responding. I wouldn't give him the satisfaction. That night, my LinkedIn profile was flooded with profile views from executives at companies throughout the industry. My email filled with messages from former colleagues, some supportive, others accusing me of destroying company morale for my own vendetta. By morning, I discovered I'd been locked out of my industry networking groups. 3 job interviews I had scheduled suddenly canceled. My professional reference from my previous job before that company called to awkwardly explain he couldn't in good conscience recommend me anymore. Vance was making good on his threat, faster than I'd anticipated. His reach was longer than I realized. I called Imani Washington. No answer. I emailed her. No response. I tried the company HR department about my final paycheck. My messages went unanswered. 3 days after the board meeting, I received a certified letter. Inside was a lawsuit naming me as defendant in a case alleging corporate espionage, theft of proprietary information, and defamation. The plaintiff, Vance Mercer personally, not the company. The amount he was suing me for, $3 million. I sat on my bathroom floor, letter clutched in my shaking hands, and finally let myself cry. He was going to win. Even if the lawsuit was baseless, even if it eventually got thrown out, the legal fees alone would bankrupt me. My savings would last maybe 2 months without income. My mother's medical bills kept coming. And now I was apparently unhireable. I had sacrificed everything to do the right thing, and Vance was still going to walk away unscathed. Worse, he was going to crush me in the process. That night, my doorbell rang. When I checked the peephole, I saw Daria from accounting, one of the 19 who'd been laid off standing there with a pizza box. I opened the door, confused. Daria? You look terrible, she said, pushing past me into my apartment. When's the last time you ate something? I couldn't remember. She set the pizza down on my coffee table and turned to face me. I heard what you did. We all did. My chest tightened. I'm sorry it didn't work. He's counterattacking, and I don't think... Stop, she interrupted. You stood up when nobody else would. That matters. She pulled out her phone and showed me a group chat with 18 other people, all the laid-off employees. The screen filled with message after message of support, determination, and strategy. We're not letting you fight this alone, Daria said. Marcus's sister is a lawyer. Aiden's roommate is a journalist. Priya has connections at 3 competing firms. We've all been documenting our experiences with Vance for years. I stared at her, uncomprehending. But he's suing me for millions. He's blackballing me in the industry. He's a bully who's never been challenged, she finished. And bullies don't know what to do when their targets join forces. That night changed everything. We transformed my living room into headquarters for what we jokingly called Operation Phoenix Rising. 19 people with nothing left to lose, plus me. 20 careers Vance had damaged or destroyed. 20 people with unique skills, networks, and knowledge. And one common enemy. Marcus's sister, Zora, the lawyer, reviewed the lawsuit and found critical weaknesses. He's claiming you stole proprietary information, but everything you gathered was part of your job duties. He's claiming defamation, but truth is an absolute defense. He's filed this as a personal lawsuit, not a corporate one, which means he can't even argue you violated company confidentiality. So I'll win? I asked hopefully. She grimaced. Eventually, maybe. But he knows you can't afford a lengthy legal battle. This isn't about winning for him. It's about draining you until you break. Then we change the battlefield, said Aiden, who'd worked in strategic communications. Vance filed this as a personal lawsuit, which means the company isn't officially involved. Their legal team isn't protecting him. That's a mistake. We all looked at him. Corporations hate bad publicity. They hate it more than they hate losing money, because bad publicity makes them lose more money long term. Right now, they're conducting an internal investigation, probably hoping to handle this quietly. So we don't let them, I said slowly, understanding dawning. Exactly, Daria agreed. But we need to be smart about it. Strategic. If we just start making noise, we look like disgruntled ex-employees. Priya, who'd been in product development, leaned forward. We need to flip the narrative. Right now, it's angry laid-off workers versus successful executive. We need to make it whistleblower exposes corruption, faces retaliation. For 2 weeks, we gathered more evidence, built our case stronger, made connections. I continued receiving threatening texts. My car was keyed. Someone tried to hack my email. Vance was escalating, growing desperate. Then came our first victory. Zora filed a countersuit alleging retaliation against a whistleblower, backed by documentation of the canceled job interviews and mysterious professional blacklisting. The judge granted a temporary restraining order preventing Vance from contacting me or interfering with my employment prospects. The same day, Aiden's roommate published the first article about the situation in a respected industry blog. The headline, Whistleblower faces multi-million-dollar lawsuit after exposing mismanaged project that led to layoffs. The article didn't name names or companies, careful to avoid any legal issues, but included enough details that industry insiders would recognize the players. It ended with a pointed question. In an era when tech companies claim to value transparency and accountability, what message does it send when those who provide that transparency face personal ruin? The piece went viral within industry circles. 2 days later, a larger tech publication picked it up, adding new details and quotes from anonymous sources familiar with the situation. Vance's attorney sent me a settlement offer. If I signed an NDA, admitted wrongdoing, and issued a public apology, he'd drop the lawsuit. I forwarded it to Zora with a one-word response: no. That weekend, I received another unexpected visitor. Imani Washington stood at my door, looking nothing like the poised board member I'd met with. She seemed tired, conflicted. "May I come in?" she asked. I hesitated, then stepped aside. "The internal investigation confirmed everything you presented," she said without preamble. "The board voted yesterday. Vance has been terminated." Relief flooded through me, quickly followed by suspicion. "Why are you telling me this in person? And why now, after ignoring my calls for weeks?" She sat on my couch, hands clasped tightly. "Because there's more, and it's complicated. The company wants to offer all 20 laid-off employees their jobs back, with back pay and a formal apology." I waited for the catch. "But they're concerned about the countersuit and the media attention. They want this handled quietly. They want us to sign NDAs," I guessed. She nodded. "And they want the countersuit dropped." I laughed, the sound harsh even to my own ears. "So Vance is gone, but everything else stays buried? The corruption, the mismanagement, the way he targeted specific people for layoffs? All swept under the rug so the company's stock doesn't take a hit? It's a generous offer, Talia." "It's not about money." I stood up, suddenly angry. "It's about accountability. 20 people had their lives upended. I'm being sued for $3 million and blackballed from my industry. And the company wants to throw some cash at the problem and pretend it never happened?" Imani looked at me for a long moment. "What do you want then?" That was the question, wasn't it? What did I actually want? Justice, yes. Accountability, absolutely. But something else too: insurance that this couldn't happen again. To anyone. "I want structural change," I said finally. "I want the company to implement new project oversight protocols so no executive can hide failures behind layoffs again. I want an external audit of all executive-led projects from the past 3 years. I want diverse hiring panels and transparent promotion criteria." I took a breath, then continued. "I want a company-wide commitment that whistleblowers will be protected, not punished. And I want Vance's personal lawsuit against me dropped. Not settled, dropped." Imani stared at me. "You're asking for fundamental changes to how the company operates." "Yes, because what happened to us wasn't one bad executive. It was a system that enabled him. That's what needs to change." She stood to leave. "I'll present your counter offer to the board, but I wouldn't get your hopes up." 3 days later, she called. The board had agreed to most of my terms, with modifications and a timeline for implementation. They'd also pressured Vance to drop his personal lawsuit against me. In exchange, we would accept our old jobs back if we wanted them, sign very limited NDAs covering only specific financial details, and drop the countersuit. I convened our group in my living room. 20 people, 20 votes. "I don't trust them," Marcus said immediately. "They're only doing this because we forced their hand." "Maybe," Daria countered. "But these changes would help everyone still working there, and any future employees too." The debate lasted hours. In the end, we agreed to a modified version of the company's offer, with one critical addition: an employee-led oversight committee with real power to review executive decisions. To my surprise, the board accepted. 1 month later, I walked back into the company building, not as a vanquished former employee, but as the newly appointed head of project governance. 19 others returned too, many to better positions than they'd left. Vance's office had been cleared out, his name removed from the website, The Phoenix project was officially terminated. The money spent on it was written off as a strategic learning experience. But the real victory came 6 months later, when the first executive-led project came under review by our new oversight committee. The VP presenting looked nervous as we dissected his budget, timeline, and contingency plans. "This all looks in order," I said finally, "but I have concerns about your staffing allocations. You've assigned junior team members to critical path tasks without senior support." He started to argue, then stopped, reconsidering. "You're right. I'll restructure the team assignments." That moment, watching an executive actually listen, actually change course based on feedback, felt better than any revenge fantasy I'd ever had. As for Vance, last I heard, he was struggling to find a new executive position. Turns out, companies are hesitant to hire someone with his particular history. His LinkedIn still lists him as executive consultant, but industry gossip says he's basically unhireable at his former level. His precious beach house was put on the market 3 months ago. I still have moments of anger when I think about what he put us through, but mostly, I feel something unexpected: gratitude. His actions forced me to discover a strength I never knew I had. To build alliances I wouldn't have otherwise formed. To create real, lasting change instead of just getting by. Sometimes the best revenge isn't destroying your enemy. It's building something better from the ashes they left behind. That's the thing about people like Vance. They're so focused on protecting their power that they never see the real threat. People who care more about doing what's right than about winning. People who work together instead of tearing each other down. People who understand that real strength comes from lifting others up, not pushing them aside. Do I miss the person I was before all this? The quiet systems analyst who never caused trouble? Sometimes. That life was certainly easier, but this one matters more. If you're watching this and you're facing your own Vance Mercer, someone who seems untouchable, who's built a fortress of power and connections around themselves, remember this: no one is actually untouchable. Systems can change. Power can shift. The key is finding your people, the ones who will stand with you when it matters. And sometimes, the person you need to become to fight that battle is exactly the person you were always meant to be. That's it. That's my story. If it resonated with you at all, please hit that like button and subscribe to our channel. I'd love to know where you're watching from, and if you've ever had to stand up against someone who seemed too powerful to challenge, drop a comment below. Your story might help someone else find their courage. Because that's how change happens. One story, one person, one moment of courage at a time. And trust me, it's worth it, even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard.